The air shimmered with opulence as crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the grand ballroom of Mar-a-Lago. Power brokers, influencers, and celebrities mingled beneath gilded ceilings, their laughter punctuated by the clink of champagne flutes. The room buzzed with whispered ambitions and veiled rivalries, each attendee vying for relevance in this rarefied world. Amidst the glitz, former President Donald Trump stood near the center of it all, his presence commanding, yet tinged with an unspoken yearning for validation. Trump adjusted his tie subtly, surveying the crowd with practiced ease. He thrived on moments like these, where every eye seemed to gravitate toward him. Yet tonight, something felt different. Perhaps it was the faint unease that lingered beneath his polished exterior, the gnawing question of whether he still mattered in a rapidly changing cultural landscape. It was then that she entered the room, a striking figure in her crisp navy dress uniform, adorned with medals earned through sacrifice and service. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes moved with quiet confidence, drawing curious glances from those who recognized her insignia but not her name. Her arrival disrupted the predictable rhythm of the evening, introducing an element of unpredictability. Trump noticed her immediately. "Who's the officer?" he murmured to an aide before striding over with characteristic bravado. "Commander Hayes," he said, extending a hand. His tone carried both curiosity and calculation. "I hear you've been making waves overseas." Sarah shook his hand firmly, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "Sir, I'm just doing my job," she replied evenly, though there was a flicker of discomfort in her expression. She wasn't accustomed to being thrust into such high-profile settings, let alone conversing with someone whose very existence polarized millions. Their initial pleasantries were short-lived. As they settled into conversation, Trump leaned in slightly, his voice carrying enough volume to draw nearby ears. "You know, leadership under pressure, that's what separates the strong from the weak. You either rise to the occasion or crumble." Sarah tilted her head, sensing the challenge implicit in his words. "With respect, sir, leadership isn't just about strength. It's also about listening. To your team, to those affected by your decisions." Trump raised an eyebrow, intrigued but defensive. "Listening won't win wars or build walls, Commander. Decisiveness does." His tone sharpened, betraying a deeper insecurity about how history might judge his own legacy. The exchange grew heated, their voices rising above the ambient chatter. Guests began to circle closer, drawn by the electricity crackling between them. "Decisiveness without empathy leads to mistakes," Sarah countered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Mistakes that cost lives." Trump bristled visibly. "And what would you know about running a country? About making impossible choices?" "I know what it means to lose people because of bureaucracy and red tape," Sarah shot back, her composure faltering for the first time. "That's not leadership, it's negligence." The tension was palpable now, their debate no longer private, but a spectacle unfolding under the watchful eyes of dozens. Outside the glass doors, paparazzi lingered, snapping photos through the windows. They caught fragments of the confrontation, Trump gesturing emphatically, Sarah standing tall despite the weight of the moment. Within minutes, snippets of their dialogue hit social media platforms, accompanied by blurry images that only heightened the intrigue. Inside, neither participant seemed fully aware of the storm brewing beyond the ballroom walls, but the seeds had been planted, and the nation would soon awaken to the fallout. By morning, hashtags like Trump Strangler v. Hayes and Leadership Under Fire trended globally. Clips of their argument dominated news feeds, dissected frame by frame. Conservatives rallied around Trump, accusing Sarah of disrespecting a former commander-in-chief. Progressives hailed her as a whistleblower brave enough to challenge authority. "She's out of line," one pundit declared on cable news. "No, she's speaking truth to power," another countered passionately. For Sarah, waking up to the viral chaos was surreal. Messages flooded her phone. Supportive texts from friends, mixed with venomous comments from strangers. Fame, once distant and abstract, now pressed down on her shoulders with suffocating intensity. As the day unfolded, the divide deepened. Talk shows debated whether Sarah's actions constituted courage or insubordination. Military forums lit up with arguments over loyalty versus accountability. Meanwhile, Trump retreated temporarily from public view, reportedly reflecting on the encounter, but not before issuing a cryptic tweet. Sometimes, even heroes need guidance. The ambiguity of his words only fueled speculation. Was he acknowledging fault or doubling down on his stance? Either way, the narrative had shifted irrevocably. For Sarah, the whirlwind of attention forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about herself. Had she crossed a line, or had she simply spoken a truth too long ignored? As she scrolled through endless commentary online, one thought crystallized. This wasn't just about her or Trump anymore. It was about something bigger, a reckoning with how we define leadership, accountability, and humanity itself. Little did she know this was only the beginning. The stage was set for a journey that would test her resolve, reshape her identity, and perhaps even change the course of countless lives, including her own. The morning after the gala, Sarah sat alone in her hotel room, staring at her phone as notifications poured in. Each message was another reminder of how quickly fame could consume someone, unprepared for its glare. Her mind drifted back to the faces she'd left behind. Comrades who hadn't returned from missions that stretched resources too thin. Guilt gnawed at her, a relentless shadow she couldn't outrun. "Why did I say those things?" she whispered to herself, clutching the edge of the desk. She hadn't planned to confront Trump so publicly, but his words had struck a nerve. They weren't just about him. They were about every decision made far removed from the battlefield, decisions that cost lives without consequence. Her thoughts turned inward, replaying moments when she'd questioned whether her sacrifices meant anything. Was it worth losing pieces of herself if nothing changed? Back home in rural Ohio, Sarah's parents watched the news coverage with mixed emotions. "She's always been driven," her mother murmured, folding laundry with trembling hands. "But this feels different." Her father leaned forward on the couch, rubbing his temples. "I'm proud of her, sure, but what happens when they turn on her? People don't like being told they're wrong, especially not by someone like our Sarah." Their worry wasn't unfounded. Growing up, Sarah had been their golden child, the one who dreamed big and worked harder than anyone else. Yet now, seeing her thrust into the national spotlight, they feared the toll it might take. Would she lose sight of who she was beneath the medals and accolades? Meanwhile, in Florida, Trump paced the marble floors of Mar-a-Lago, replaying the encounter in his mind. He admired Sarah's audacity, even if it stung, but couldn't shake the feeling that her words had exposed vulnerabilities he'd rather keep hidden. "She called me out," he muttered to an aide, half smiling despite himself. Not many people do that anymore. Yet there was something unsettling about her accusation. That leadership required more than bravado. It forced him to confront questions he'd long avoided. Had he done enough during his presidency? Could he still matter in a world moving faster than he cared to admit? His craving for relevance burned brighter than ever. If handled correctly, this moment could redefine his legacy, or destroy it entirely. As the days passed, analysts dissected their clash, framing it as a battle between two eras. Trump embodied traditional authority, strength through decisiveness, power through dominance. Sarah, however, represented a new ideal: empathy over ego, accountability over arrogance. "She thinks we can lead with hearts instead of fists," Trump mused aloud during a late-night call with a confidant. But history doesn't reward softness. On the other side, Sarah wrestled with doubts. Was she naive to believe change was possible? Or was standing firm the only way to honor those she'd lost? Online, the debate raged on. Conservatives dismissed Sarah as reckless, while progressives praised her courage. Memes mocked Trump's defensiveness. Think pieces lauded Sarah's moral clarity. Hashtags like "Listen to our heroes" trends globally, amplifying calls for reform. For Sarah, scrolling through social media became both validating and exhausting. Messages flooded in from veterans sharing their own struggles, thanking her for giving voice to their pain. But alongside support came vitriol, threats disguised as patriotism. "You've started something bigger than yourself," a friend texted. "Are you ready for where it leads?" Within military circles, whispers grew louder. Some saw Sarah as a trailblazer, challenging outdated systems. Others viewed her outspokenness as insubordinate. During a tense meeting with her commanding officer, Admiral Grayson, the tension came to a head. "Commander Hayes," Grayson began, his tone measured but firm, "your actions have drawn significant attention. While your intentions may be noble, we must consider the impact on morale and discipline." "I didn't seek this spotlight, sir," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the weight of his gaze. But staying silent felt worse. Grayson sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Be careful, Sarah. Once you step into the arena, there's no stepping out. That evening, Sarah met with close friends at a quiet cafe. Over coffee, they urged caution. "This is your chance to make real change," said Mia, a fellow veteran. "But don't let fame overshadow why you started this fight," another friend chimed in. "People will try to shape you into whatever serves their agenda. Stay true to who you are." Sarah nodded, though uncertainty lingered. How could she balance authenticity with the demands of a newfound celebrity? Every choice felt like walking a tightrope above a chasm of judgment. Sensing an opportunity, Trump's team drafted an invitation for Sarah to join him on a major news network. Framed as a chance to continue their dialogue publicly, it was also a calculated move to reclaim control of the narrative. When Sarah received the email, her heart raced. Accepting meant stepping further into the fray, but declining risked appearing cowardly. "This isn't just about you," Trump's assistant added during a follow-up call. "It's about starting a conversation America needs to have." After hours of deliberation, Sarah finally responded. "I'll do it," she typed, hitting send before doubt could paralyze her again. She knew the stakes. One misstep could tarnish her reputation forever. Yet deep down, she believed the truth mattered more than fear. This wasn't just about confronting Trump. It was about holding power accountable, no matter the cost. As news of their upcoming appearance broke, anticipation reached fever pitch. Late-night hosts joked about the impending clash, while political analysts speculated on potential outcomes. Social media buzzed with predictions, memes, and hashtags. For Sarah, the pressure mounted. Sleep eluded her as she rehearsed arguments, bracing for whatever Trump might throw her way. For Trump, the interview offered redemption, a chance to prove he could evolve even under fire. Neither realized yet how profoundly the encounter would change them both. The studio hummed with anticipation as millions tuned in to watch what promised to be one of the most explosive interviews in recent memory. Sarah Hayes sat across from Donald Trump, her posture rigid but resolute, while he exuded his trademark confidence, though there was a flicker of unease beneath his polished exterior. "Good evening, America," the host began, leaning forward with practiced enthusiasm. "Tonight we bring you two powerful voices on leadership and accountability. Former President Donald Trump and Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes." Trump flashed his signature grin, turning toward the camera. "Let's get right to it," he said, his tone brimming with bravado. "Sarah, tell us your side of things." Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. This wasn't just an interview, it was a reckoning. At first, their exchange seemed civil enough. The host guided them through surface-level questions about patriotism and service. But when the topic shifted to leadership under pressure, cracks began to show. "You talk about sacrifice," Trump interjected at one point, his voice rising slightly. "But real leaders don't make excuses, they deliver results." Sarah clenched her fists under the table, her composure wavering. "Results matter, yes, but so do ethics. Sacrifices shouldn't come at the cost of human lives." The tension escalated rapidly, each word slicing deeper into the fragile veneer of politeness. Viewers leaned closer to their screens, sensing that something monumental was unfolding. It was then that Sarah decided she couldn't hold back any longer. Her voice trembled as she recounted the night she lost 3 comrades during a critical mission. A mission delayed because reinforcements never arrived. "We begged for support," she said, tears welling up despite her efforts to remain composed. "And no one listened. Those men died waiting for bureaucracy to move, for someone to care." Trump's expression faltered momentarily, his usual bluster replaced by something akin to discomfort. For the first time, he seemed unsure how to respond. "Those decisions weren't mine alone," Trump shot back, though his tone lacked its earlier certainty. "There are layers of approval, chains of command." "But they happened under your watch," Sarah countered sharply. "Doesn't that mean something? Doesn't accountability start at the top?" Her words hit like a punch, forcing Trump to confront the weight of his legacy. He glanced away briefly, his jaw tightening as if wrestling with unspoken doubts. After a tense pause, Trump surprised everyone, including himself. "Look, mistakes were made," he admitted gruffly. "I won't pretend otherwise. No administration is perfect." The admission hung in the air, heavy with implications. Sarah stared at him, stunned by the unexpected vulnerability. Even the host seemed momentarily speechless. Across the country, viewers gasped audibly. social media erupted with reactions ranging from disbelief to admiration. Analysts scrambled to interpret the moment, calling it unprecedented in modern political history. "What does this mean for his legacy?" one pundit asked on live television. Another chimed in, "This could redefine how we view accountability and leadership." For many, Trump's acknowledgement felt like a rare glimpse of humanity, a reminder that even larger-than-life figures have flaws. As the interview continued, Sarah felt a mix of liberation and dread. Speaking truth to power had been cathartic, but she knew the fallout would be immense. Would her superiors see her actions as courageous or reckless? And what about her personal life? How would loved ones react? She glanced at Trump, who appeared equally conflicted. In that fleeting moment, she saw not an adversary, but another person grappling with their place in history. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, hashtags like "Listen to Our Heroes" dominated social media. Veterans shared stories of neglect and resilience, amplifying calls for systemic reform. Celebrities and influencers joined the conversation, urging followers to pay attention to overlooked struggles. "This isn't just about Sarah," tweeted one prominent actress. "It's about every hero whose voice deserves to be heard." The interview transcended entertainment, sparking grassroots movements and policy discussions. Lawmakers referenced Sarah's testimony in debates, while advocacy groups rallied around her message. It became clear that this wasn't merely a clash of personalities. It was a catalyst for change. As the cameras cut away, both Sarah and Trump retreated into private reflection. Neither could predict where this moment would lead, but both understood that nothing would ever be the same again. For Sarah, the road ahead promised challenges, but also opportunities to shape a better future. For Trump, the encounter forced him to reckon with his own contradictions, leaving room for growth or further controversy. The morning after the interview, America woke up divided. Conservatives lashed out at Sarah, branding her a traitor who had disrespected the office of the presidency. Progressives hailed her as a beacon of truth and accountability, their admiration pouring in through hashtags like "Sarah Speaks Out" and "Heroes Deserve Justice." Sarah speaks out, teaching, "She's tearing apart everything we stand for," one conservative pundit declared on cable news, his voice dripping with disdain. "No, she's holding us accountable," countered a progressive commentator passionately. "That's what real patriotism looks like." For Sarah, scrolling through social media felt surreal. Every comment, whether supportive or scathing, seemed to amplify the weight of her decision. Fame wasn't something she'd sought, but now it clung to her like a second skin, suffocating yet impossible to shed. Within military circles, opinions were equally polarized. Some viewed Sarah as a trailblazer, brave enough to challenge systemic neglect, while others saw her outspokenness as insubordinate, a threat to discipline and tradition. "Commander Hayes has always been bold," Admiral Grayson remarked during a tense meeting with senior officers. "But this level of public exposure risks undermining morale." Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reed, however, disagreed. "Sir, maybe it's time we listened. If nothing else, she's sparked a conversation that needed to happen." The debate simmered beneath the surface, leaving Sarah caught between admiration and criticism within her own ranks. Meanwhile, Trump retreated to Mar-a-Lago, avoiding public appearances as his team scrambled to reshape the narrative around his admission. In private, he found himself replaying Sarah's words, haunted by questions about his legacy. "What if she's right?" he muttered to an aide late one night, staring out at the ocean. "What if I could have done more?" His vulnerability unsettled even those closest to him. For years, Trump had built his image on unshakable confidence, but now cracks began to form, revealing glimpses of introspection neither his supporters nor critics expected. As days passed, media coverage shifted subtly. Analysts noted how Trump's acknowledgement of fault humanized him, offering a rare moment of relatability. Supporters praised his willingness to admit mistakes, while critics remained skeptical but intrigued. "He's not just a caricature anymore," one journalist wrote. "There's depth there, flawed, yes, but undeniable." Even Sarah noticed the change. Watching clips of interviews where Trump reflected on leadership, she felt a flicker of respect, an emotion she hadn't anticipated. Overwhelmed by scrutiny, Sarah decided to retreat to her family home in rural Ohio. Stepping off the plane, she was greeted by the familiar scent of fresh hay and her mother's warm embrace. "It's good to have you back," her father said gruffly, pulling her into a hug. No matter what happens, remember why you started this journey. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself to breathe. Surrounded by loved ones, the noise of fame faded, replaced by the quiet comfort of home. Over dinner, Sarah opened up to her family about the whirlwind of events. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she admitted softly. "I just wanted people to listen, to care." Her younger brother nodded thoughtfully. "You're doing exactly what you set out to do, Sarah. You're making them see." Her parents shared stories of her childhood dreams, how she'd always wanted to protect and serve. Those memories reignited a spark within her, reminding her of the purpose that had driven her to join the Navy in the first place. Later that week, Sarah met with close friends who'd traveled to support her. Over coffee, they opened up about their own struggles, battles with PTSD, bureaucratic red tape, and feelings of invisibility. "I lost 2 friends last year," confessed Mia, another veteran, "and no one cared enough to ask why. Your voice gives us hope, Sarah." Their stories inspired her to channel her experience into advocacy, using her platform to amplify voices often ignored. Back in the public eye, late-night hosts seized on the drama. Trump admitting fault? That's like finding a unicorn, joked one comedian, drawing laughter from the audience. Social media exploded with memes juxtaposing Trump's usual bravado with his unexpected humility. Think pieces dissected every angle, analyzing the cultural impact of their exchange. For Sarah, watching the circus unfold was bittersweet. While grateful for the attention on veterans' issues, she couldn't help but feel reduced to a spectacle. Amidst the chaos, a quieter movement emerged. Ordinary citizens began organizing discussions about leadership, accountability, and listening to those on the front lines. Veterans groups rallied around Sarah's message, pushing for tangible reforms. "This isn't just about Sarah," tweeted one advocate. "It's about ensuring no hero is left behind." As Sarah processed the whirlwind of events, clarity began to emerge. She realized her moment in the spotlight wasn't just about confronting Trump, it was about driving real change. "I can't go back to how things were," she told Mia one evening, her voice steady with resolve. "If I don't use this platform to make a difference, then what was it all for?" Mia smiled, squeezing her hand. "Then let's get to work." With renewed purpose, Sarah began planning her next steps, setting the stage for personal growth and redemption, not just for herself, but for countless others counting on her courage. Months had passed since the explosive interview, and Sarah Hayes stepped back into her role in the Navy with quiet determination. The controversy had reshaped her perspective. She no longer saw herself merely as a soldier, but as a catalyst for change. Her resolve burned brighter than ever, fueled by the countless stories shared by veterans who'd reached out to thank her. "I'm not just serving my country anymore," she confided to Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reed during a candid moment on base. "I'm fighting for everyone whose voice hasn't been heard." Marcus nodded, his respect evident. "You've already done more than most of us could dream of. Don't lose sight of that." One crisp morning, an envelope arrived at Sarah's quarters. Inside was a handwritten letter from none other than Donald Trump. "Commander Hayes," it began, "your courage challenged me in ways I didn't expect. Thank you for holding me accountable, for reminding me that even leaders must listen." Sarah read the words twice, disbelief giving way to cautious appreciation. It wasn't an apology, nor was it grandiose, but it felt genuine. For the first time, she saw vulnerability in Trump's penmanship, a stark contrast to his public persona. Weeks later, Sarah found herself seated across from Trump in a private Manhattan office. The atmosphere was tense yet charged with possibility. "I'll admit, I underestimated you," Trump said, leaning forward. "But maybe that's what I needed, a wake-up call." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "And maybe this is your chance to make things right, for all of us." They agreed to collaborate on initiatives supporting veterans' mental health, leveraging their combined influence to drive systemic reform. News of their partnership shocked critics and inspired hope among supporters, proving that progress often emerges from unlikely alliances. Sarah leaned heavily on her family, finding solace in their unwavering support. Over Sunday dinners, laughter replaced lingering tension as they celebrated small victories together. "You're stronger than you think," her mother reminded her one evening, "and we're here no matter what." For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to be vulnerable, realizing that strength wasn't about carrying burdens alone, it was about sharing them. Within military circles, opinions shifted. Once viewed skeptically, Sarah now earned admiration for using her platform responsibly. Even Admiral Grayson acknowledged her impact during a formal ceremony honoring her contributions. "Commander Hayes has proven that authenticity and duty can coexist," he announced, drawing applause from assembled officers. "Let her example guide us all." Trump's image underwent a subtle transformation. While many remained critical, others began to see him differently, as someone willing to confront his flaws and engage in meaningful dialogue. Media coverage highlighted his efforts to address veteran care gaps, framing him as a figure capable of growth. "He's still divisive," one analyst noted, "but there's no denying he's trying." Inspired by his interactions with Sarah, Trump's foundation introduced programs aimed at fostering understanding between generations and communities. Veterans' voices became central to these initiatives, ensuring those affected by policy changes were part of the solution. "This isn't charity, it's empowerment," Trump declared at a press conference, flanked by Sarah and other advocates. "We're building bridges." The nationwide discussion sparked by Sarah led to tangible action. Congress proposed new laws addressing systemic issues affecting service members, from delayed reinforcements to inadequate mental health resources. Advocacy groups hailed the developments as long overdue progress. "We wouldn't be here without Sarah," said Senator Lisa Martinez during a heated debate. "Her courage forced us to confront uncomfortable truths." High-profile figures lent their platforms to amplify Sarah's message. Actors, musicians, and influencers shared personal stories of loved ones impacted by neglectful systems, bringing attention to overlooked struggles. "She's given us a blueprint for advocacy," tweeted actress Emma Stone. "Listen, learn, and act." A powerful documentary premiered at Sundance, chronicling Sarah's resilience and redemption. Critics praised its raw portrayal of human struggle and triumph, calling it a testament to the power of authenticity. Watching the film premiere, Sarah felt a mix of pride and humility. "This isn't my story alone," she told reporters afterward. "It belongs to every hero who deserves to be heard." The story became a symbol of how uncomfortable conversations could drive societal progress. Analysts pointed to Sarah and Trump's alliance as proof that accountability and empathy could coexist, even in the most polarized environments. "Change begins when we stop shouting and start listening," wrote one journalist. Their journey proves it. Each character emerged and changed. Sarah found renewed purpose, channeling her experiences into advocacy work that inspired countless others. Trump embraced moments of vulnerability, earning grudging respect from former detractors. "She taught me humility," Trump admitted during a rare reflective interview, "and sometimes that's the hardest lesson of all." Their journey reminded audiences that even those in the spotlight face human struggles, and true change comes from embracing imperfection and fostering connection. Together, Sarah and Trump left behind a legacy of hope, proving that redemption was possible for anyone willing to listen, learn, and grow. As Sarah stood beside Trump at a veterans rally months later, she reflected on how far they'd come. "We may never agree on everything," she said, smiling faintly, "but if we can find common ground, so can anyone." As the dust settled on their unlikely alliance, Sarah Hayes and Donald Trump found themselves at the center of a cultural reckoning. The public had grown accustomed to seeing them as larger-than-life figures, icons shaped by media narratives. But this story revealed something deeper. Two flawed individuals striving for meaning in an imperfect world. "People don't see us as human," Sarah mused during a quiet moment with her closest confidant, Mia. "They only see symbols, heroes or villains. But we're just people." Mia nodded thoughtfully. "And maybe that's why your message resonates so much. You remind everyone that even heroes struggle." For Trump, too, the experience forced him to confront his own humanity. In private moments, he reflected on how years of projecting invincibility had distanced him from those he sought to lead. "Maybe I spent too long hiding behind the mask," he admitted to an aide one evening. "It's exhausting, isn't it?" Sarah's courage became a beacon for countless others navigating their own battles against authority. Veterans reached out daily, sharing stories of how her boldness inspired them to speak up about injustices they'd endured. "You gave me permission to fight back," wrote one soldier in a heartfelt email, "to demand better, Not just for myself, but for everyone who comes after. Her bravery wasn't without cost. Scrutiny followed her everywhere, but she refused to let fear silence her. During a candid interview months later, she addressed critics head-on. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," she said firmly. "It's acting despite it. If I can do that, so can you." Trump's transformation, though subtle, marked a turning point in his legacy. By acknowledging past mistakes and engaging in meaningful dialogue, he demonstrated that redemption was possible, even for someone as polarizing as himself. "It's not easy admitting fault," he confessed during a rare reflective appearance on television, "but sometimes accountability is the first step toward real change." But supporters praised his willingness to evolve. "He's still flawed," remarked one analyst, "but there's no denying he's trying, and that counts for something." Through her journey, Sarah challenged societal obsessions with perfection. She reminded audiences that authenticity mattered more than polished personas, a lesson amplified by Trump's unexpected vulnerability. "No one gets it right all the time," Sarah told a packed auditorium during a veteran summit. "What matters is owning our flaws and using them to grow. That's where strength lies." Her words struck a chord, sparking conversations about embracing imperfections in personal and professional spheres alike. Both Sarah and Trump discovered that vulnerability could bridge divides once thought insurmountable. Their partnership proved that honesty fostered understanding, inspiring others to open up about their struggles. "When we share our truths," Sarah explained during a panel discussion, "we create space for others to do the same. Connection starts there." Trump echoed this sentiment during a foundation event. "Being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. It makes you relatable, and relatability builds trust." Despite relentless scrutiny, Sarah and Trump emerged stronger, proving that growth was possible even under intense judgment. For Sarah, fame became a tool for advocacy rather than a burden. For Trump, it offered a chance to redefine his legacy. "We're all works in progress," Sarah reflected during a late-night conversation with Mia. "The spotlight doesn't have to destroy you. It can transform you if you let it." Sarah's journey crystallized a powerful truth about leadership. Titles meant little without empathy. Her ability to listen, learn, and act with compassion set a new standard for what it meant to lead. "Leadership isn't about power," she declared during a keynote speech. "It's about service. About lifting others up and ensuring no voice goes unheard." Trump, too, embraced this philosophy, channeling his resources into initiatives that prioritized connection over control. Together, they redefined leadership for a generation hungry for authenticity. Their story transcended headlines, reminding audiences of their shared humanity. It challenged viewers to look beyond surface-level differences and recognize the universal struggles binding them together. "This isn't just about Sarah and Trump," Sarah emphasized during the documentary premiere. "It's about all of us, about finding courage, embracing imperfection, and building bridges where none existed before." As the credits rolled, viewers sat in silence, moved by the raw emotion captured on screen. In that moment, the narrative extended beyond fiction. It became a call to action, urging everyone to embrace their capacity for courage, connection, and change.